Why is that some dumb entrepreneurs can make up to 10 or 100 times more than real smart PhD level entrepreneurs? Well, that's because smart entrepreneurs oftentimes fall for what I call the smart person trap. In this video, I'm going to bring you 5 clear performance problems that only affect smart entrepreneurs. I've seen them hundreds of times in my clients, sometimes one of them or sometimes all of them at the same time. I'm going to be giving you exactly a real story, what the problem is, what is the cost associated with it, and specific strategies that you can implement today to remove them from your life. I guarantee that you are being traditionally considered smart, but your bank account begs to differ. This will finally solve the problem. Welcome back. My name is Castillo, founder of Selfmastered Performance Institute for Founders. New to the channel, subscribe now so your feed improves and we can help more people with this content. So the first trap that smart entrepreneurs fall into is called, of course, analysis paralysis. When you're very smart, you're able to consider a lot of variation around the same problem. So your mind goes in 1,000 different directions trying to find the most important way of solving something. The problem with this is that you end up solving problems in your head without much needed information that only come from doing. So you delay action unnecessarily, thinking that through thinking you're going to be solving the problem. That is typically never the issue. At some point, you must start getting feedback, real feedback from getting things done. The cost of not doing things is delaying your result by years or months. And I can tell you a story of one of my clients in the past who had raised about $500,000 and spent half of that, so about $250K, building a prototype for a project management app 3 times within the first 18 months. At the same time, a different competitor who was bootstrapped was able to conquer quite a lot of the customer base that my client was going after because he shipped very quickly, got feedback from the market, and iterated very fast. So in this case, the cost of that analysis paralysis was losing market share and probably wasting a big chunk of that $250,000. So this is a real problem. And there's 2 tools that you can use to solve this for good. The first one is to ship at 80%. That is very important. Anytime you are 80% satisfied with your solution, just ship it. Just start getting feedback from your clients, from the market. Don't wait for perfection because perfection is an ideal that cannot be attained. So as soon as you're 80% satisfied, you ship. And there's a saying in Silicon Valley that if you're not ashamed of your first product, you probably launch too late. Now, I understand that that is very dangerous advice because most people have low standards about what high quality typically is, but I still recommend that you work as much as you can to get to a level you're 80% satisfied and then ship it. So tool number 1 is to ship at 80%. Tool number 2 is to have analysis boundaries, as I like to call them. So if you, for instance, you're making a decision that is worth less than $1,000, I typically recommend taking less than a day to actually take it. If it's between 1,000 to 10,000, let's take a week. And if it's something you really need to commit to, more than 10,000, you can take a couple of weeks. The benchmark, the boundaries depend on your income level and the total risk involved with the decision, of course, but having some sort of analysis boundaries helps you move forward and not fall into the trap of overthinking. Problem number 2 is overcomplicating everything. See, when you're high Q, you tend to gravitate towards complex, intricate solutions to simple problems, which leads to really wasting a lot of time building and working on things that are just not needed. And I remember the case of a client years ago. He was an executive coach that he wanted to start training in Europe high-level CEOs. And he built a very complex coaching ecosystem, a 12-week program. He also had like low-ticket programs, had a whole community years ago. It was super complex. And managing all of that had him overcommitted and not able to do anything meaningfully well. Turns out that his clients, the only thing they wanted was his input on leadership decisions. The only thing they wanted is having a chance to talk to him to get his perspective because he had already done what his clients wanted to do and just guide him through the decision-making process. That's it. No 12-week course, no low-ticket product, no community, no, just the most important thing. So he wasted a lot of money and a lot of time building things nobody wanted. Why? Because he had the IQ to actually imagine that whole ecosystem and how he was going to change the life of his clients in the most relevant way through every single tiny angle. And the cost of literally falling for this complexity, which I've fallen for many times in the past, is wasting time and money on things that don't need to be built at all. So how do you solve it? Well, there's two tools that I'm going to give you. The first one is the one thing filter. In any problem you're trying to solve, there's typically one bottleneck, one thing that if addressed is going to make everything else easier. And then the second tool is a simplicity filter. So I always like to ask myself, how can I make things simple? In everything, on personal life and on business life. How can I go to the gym faster? How can I improve my sleep and make it simpler? How can I make meditation practice simpler? How can I make team management simpler? I'm consistently trying to remove steps, remove decision-making processes, build systems that don't need my direct input to be operated. So overvaluing complexity is a huge one, but I believe the number 3 really is what trips most people up, which is ego-driven decisions. And this one is huge. And it's huge because it mostly goes undetected. See, smart people, smart entrepreneurs, they tend to be high IQ. Why? Because they are right most of the time. They're able to think very clearly and devise clear solutions. And that boosts an inflated sense of ego sometimes, which leads them to not see reality from what it is, but what they will like it to be. And I remember one time that I was working with a guy who had been a very successful McKinsey consultant. The guy was crazy smart, and he had a lot of experience on a specific industry that he was about to become an entrepreneur in. And he had this solution or this product that he wanted to bring to the market who had already been designed in his head. And he spent a lot of time building this. And as soon as he took it to the market, he got negative customer feedback. People didn't seem to be interested, and he was offering them features they didn't need, and they needed features that he didn't provide. And because he was operating from a sense of ego, he started quoting Steve Jobs and Henry Ford, basically saying that the market didn't know what they wanted until he had come to save them and show it. And he eventually took a beating because they kept not buying the solution, because the solution was not addressing the real needs. He had a lot of experience in the industry on a consulting level, but he really lacked the specificity that was needed to build a useful solution. And it took him a lot of time to realize that he had to put the ego aside in order to succeed in that market. Now, how do you solve this? Well, I have something called the ego circuit breaker. In essence, every time you're making a decision about something, there's an assumption you're making about the market you're operating in or a decision that you're about to make, you list down all of the reasons why you think you're making a right decision. And then you compare the reasons that led you to make that decision with the market feedback. Average entrepreneurs, they're consistently trying to be right, but that's not how you grow. You grow by proving to yourself that you're wrong, that there's a margin for improvement, because there always is. So try to prove yourself wrong. And this is what I coach my client to do. And guess what? As soon as he put his ego aside and started building the thing that the market was telling him to build, things improve very quickly. Trap number 4 is huge. In fact, I built Selfmastered, my company, around it. It is that smart entrepreneurs typically over-index in technical skills. So what do I mean by this? In order to succeed in business or in sports, you need 2 types of skills. You need technical skills, which is what you do, marketing, sales, operations, whatever. And you need performance skills, your ability to focus, be disciplined, consistently show up, believe in yourself, all that stuff. And smart entrepreneurs tend to believe that the only thing they need is to really be the number 1 in technical skills. But that is just one side of the equation. You also need to be number 1 at focus, discipline, consistency, resilience, emotional control, stress management, the things that actually create champions. Michael Jordan was not Michael Jordan because he was very good at passing or dribbling or any basketball technical skill. He was very good at showing up every day, entering the zone, training harder than anyone else, leading the team, and believing in his ability to succeed. In other words, he was an elite performer, and he was also very good technically, right? So if you over-index on technical skills, you forever be trapped. You're going to hit a ceiling. But I remember distinctly a guy who was extremely good at marketing. Like literally, he was fantastic. He was so good that he was working with one of the biggest marketing minds in the US. He was the right-hand man of a very famous marketer. Now, the problem was that he didn't want to be working for someone else. He wanted to have his own business, but he didn't have the performance skills in order to go out and build it. In other words, he couldn't focus after his 9 to 5 on his business because he was permanently tired, has bad habit. He didn't believe in his ability to succeed. He didn't know how to consistently get things done outside of his 9 to 5. In other words, he was limited by his performance skills. As soon as we started working together, well, it took about 3 months, his life changed. Within 7 months, he built $100K a month business. How is that even possible? Well, because he was so good at marketing that as soon as we unlocked the performance side of the equation, his results skyrocketed. And if you do not focus on your performance skills, you will forever be trapped at a specific revenue ceiling. Maybe it's at 10K, 20K, 100K, 2 million. Like, I've worked with all types of people. I've even worked with people who were procrastinating like crazy on a deal that was worth 125 million. Many years ago. So this happens at any scale, and over-indexing on technical skills literally will hurt your career. How do you solve this? You train it through specific performance training that adapts to your specific needs, which is in essence what we provide at Selfmastered. We run a whole analysis of what is it that you need right now based on the goals you set for yourself, and we consistently train your self-awareness, your mental performance, your physical performance, executive strategy, everything we need in order to take you to the finish line. And finally, the fifth trap is falling for the lone wolf myth. And I fall for that in the past. In essence, when you are very smart, you believe you can figure everything out yourself. That if you just learn how to schedule everything in tiny increments so you can devote your intelligence and attention to doing as many things as you can, you're probably going to be doing a much better job than anyone could because you are very smart. The problem with this, you guessed it, is that over time you burn out because you're doing a lot of things. You're consistently switching in between tasks, not really devoting enough energy to master any one of them. And at some point you hit a ceiling because you're not as smart enough to outcompete someone who is devoted to mastering that thing. So what is the solution? Hiring. First, you systematize best practices based on your current understanding, and then you delegate that to someone else who can operate it for you. If that person knows more about you, and you should be hiring people that are better than you at the things you want to delegate at, they will be in charge of improving the SOP, the systematization of the process. All right, so these are the 5 most common traps I see smart people falling into. And I give you specific tools to solve them. So if, as I said before, if you've traditionally been considered smart, but your bank account begs to differ, that's most likely because you're overcomplicating, over-analyzing, and over-committing to many things, or blindly operating from a place of ego that is not helping you get to your goals. Or you're just very, very bright. You're technically very skilled, but your performance is subpar. So your results are subpar. Whatever the case, work on performing like an average IQ guy, because that would most probably help you get more done and be more successful in half the time. See you in the next video.